Alright, so in terms of your render settings, if you just open this guy up here, so I think pretty much before, if you're just rendering stills, most of what you pay attention to is like maybe some sampling stuff and the size of your image. In this case, you need a few more options. So the first one is what the file name prefix. This is basically what your renders are going to start with. So it'll be like render 1, render 2, render 3. But instead of it saying render, you can set it to be whatever you want. By default, if you put nothing here, you can see it's using the scene name. So in this case, I don't really want renders called popfig turntable redo tutorial version 1.1, popfig turntable redo tutorial version 1.2, because that's awful. Turn tab to. So I mean, in this case, I'll just call all of my stuff turn tab 2 for like, hey, this is the second turntable I'm rendering. I don't know. You can name it whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. Probably just put something more logical than your scene name because it's gross. In terms of image format, I usually find that I have the fewest issues with TIFFs, and I just sort of ignore this. Usually I'll do like 16. Sometimes I'll do 32. But I found that when I render to PNGs or JPEGs, they tend to render a lot darker, and it's just gross. But if I do TIFFs, they come out totally fine. So like I said, I usually just do TIFFs. If you set it to at least do 16, some 32 if you're feeling fancy, but for now I'm just going to leave it at 16 because I don't need these huge. This I usually just leave as use output transform. I've tried all of these options with PNGs, and it left all of them dark at the end, which is why I switched to TIFFs, because I'm like, this is dumb. I don't want to deal with this. TIFFs are better files anyway to work with. They give you more data. Anywho, so for the frame/animation extension, this is basically going to be, so mine's going to go through and render all of your images and automatically number them all. So like if it's frame 92, it's going to number it with 92 at the end. And this is just how you like your stuff to be labeled. The only thing to be aware of is, I mean, I usually use this one because I think it's just organized and nice. Just make sure that you have like the extension at the end. I know many, like if you have like the frame number, like some operating systems very much don't like that. I think Mac and Windows both hate that. Linux might not care. But usually, just to be safe, leave the extension at the end. And again, I like this one. So this one, if I choose this, it's going to do turn tab 2 _ the frame number .tiff. Just make sure if you select any of these that say single frame after them, they're not going to work for the next option. So you do need to choose one of these down here that do not say single frame right next to them. Because the next thing you're going to want to look at is the frame range. And if you can see if you choose like single frame, that's grayed out and you can't access it. So if that's the case, again, just go and choose one that's not single frame. Frame padding is how many zeros it's going to put. So it will be like frame 0001 for this. Or like if I set it to 2, it would be like frame 01. In this case, I'm just going to leave it at 3. It really doesn't matter. It's honestly, I've never really had issues with it either way. But anywho, so frame range, you're going to go down. Your start frame is where do you want to start rendering. So in this case, I would like frame 1. And then the end frame is going to be frame 360. Wow, what have I just typed in here? Okay, so I'll set it to 360. And then by frame is basically, do you want to render every single frame? Do you want to render every 50th frame? Every 7th frame? If you wanted to, you could render every like 0.25 frames. So if you went from like frame 1 to 2, it would render you 4 images. One at frame 1, one at frame 1.25, one at 1.5, and another at 1.75. Don't know why you'd need that. It would be, I suppose, a convenient way to make something slow-mo. In this case, you guys just want frame 1. If you're ever testing like an animation, if you're testing the lighting for your animation, you could totally render like every 25th frame or something like that, just to test and make sure that like as you're spinning your object, your lighting doesn't change dramatically. But for your finals, you're going to want render by 1 frame. If you check skip existing frames, if you've already rendered Maybe you've already rendered some of these like I have by accident. Well, not by accident, but if you see you already have an image folder full of rendered turntables. Like I got through rendering like 40 of these frames. This is what the actual render looks like. You can check skip existing and it won't overwrite your files. So like right now, if I didn't have that checked and I said start this rendering, it's going to re-render all of these, which may be what you want if you made a change to your scene. Meh, who knows? Again, depends on what you need. Renderable camera is just which camera you want to render through. So in this case, I'm going to set this to render cam because that is the camera I set up specifically because I like the angle of the character in it. And then again, just your standard image size settings down here. That's pretty much all you need to know for your render settings for rendering videos specifically. It's nothing like super terribly fancy there. So if you're rendering to actually start the render, you need to go to your rendering tab up here. So don't freeze on me, please. Oh, I beg of you. No. I'll return with another video.